Okay, folks, appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Outside the studio here, of course, we had a big celebration in our family. Hope you and your family doing well as mine. So week 8, I got to think about what week it is. Basically, I saw no college football tonight. So you're going to have to fill me in. It's your show. You inform me. We're going to run through the scores. I caught like the last 10 minutes of Georgia, Texas. That's about it. I saw a little bit of Miami, Louisville this morning, and Indiana completely steamrolling Nebraska. But I will say this about Georgia and Texas. I will say this because I saw it all over the place this week that Texas was by far, no question, the best team in the country. And I'm not saying that those people that were saying that are in any way that they are wrong, were wrong. There's a long season to be played. I will just say, do not jump to conclusions. How many times have we seen a team that is quote unquote down, that is ultra talented like Georgia, has a championship pedigree, has a coach, a head coach who has done it all, seen it all, won championships, go into a place like Georgia did tonight, Austin, Texas, where it appeared as though one team had it all going for them, on a roll, best team in the country, and the other one looked a little vulnerable, a little wounded, lost a game, could have lost 2, could have lost 3 games, of course. And Georgia, impressive, it appears, in defeating Texas. All right. Let me get to the scores in progress, then we'll get to the calls. Here we go. Our scores in the moment include at the half, Oregon State leading UNLV 17-16. TCU's got a 10-0 lead at Utah. It's almost halftime. And those are top 25. No, those are all FBS games, because I was going to say Utah, TCU should not, either one of those teams, be ranked in the top 25. All right, that's all we got going right now in college football. So we're not going to waste our time, even though I need to be educated on all the scores of the day. We are going to go right to phone lines, and we got the real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. You missed a lot of good games. Probably the number one game I would watch is the Miami-Louisville game. If you like a game where you just see everything that can possibly happen in a game, that's the game for you, Mark. 52-45. Defense was basically non-existent, but it wasn't like people were running wide open. It was just the lead offense. Cam Ward had Heisman moments. Like, there was a 3rd and 17, and he got a first down on his leg. Just an incredible athlete, incredible ball placement player. Louisville ran a touchdown back, 100-yard touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown. Miami caught a fumble in the end zone, recovered it for a touchdown. Just all sorts of wackiness. Every time, Miami looked like the better team throughout the game, but every time Louisville would just come back with 1 or 2 strikes down the field. It was an amazing game to watch. My favorite game today to watch by far.
Very cool. I saw some of that game. Let's see. Miami was up, 7 to 10 points. Most of the game that I saw some of the first half, but I didn't see any of that craziness. I did see Cam Ward sling it around the yard. And for as impressive as he is and fun to watch and next level for sure, he does like to throw it into a crowd. And he got away with a few that he shouldn't have. And he got burned a few times. And I saw Damian Martinez one play, and the Miami offensive line carry the Louisville defense about 25 yards down the field. Like it was a big scrum, and they just push on down the field. I saw that Louisville running back, Isaac Brown, who's really good, the true freshman, have a big touchdown. But again, I saw the first half. So yes, I will do my best to catch up on some of these games. But yeah, Louisville, not necessarily a mark kind of game at 52-45, but it looks like a whole lot of fun.
Well, it's not like the Big 12 games back in the day where you see people 30, 40 yards wide open. It wasn't that type of 52-45. It was better offense than better defense.
Okay.
So I think it'll be on your end of 52-45. You like another game I'll talk about, Georgia, Texas. So the overriding story of this game is Georgia completely dominated Texas at the beginning of the game. Got to a massive, I think it was 23-0 lead at halftime or something like that. I mean, they just curb stomped them in the
Oh,
beginning of the
wow.
game. It was 17-0 like that. And but in the second half, the refs, our friends in the Zebras, became the story. So maybe the worst officiating call I have ever seen, Mark. Literally the worst call I've ever seen. So there was a pass interference they called on the defense for Texas, okay? And this is off of a pick. So Georgia Carson Beck throws a pick, and they run all the way to Texas' 7-yard line to where it'd be first and goal. Gets negated by a pass interference call. Fans don't like it. Some idiot in the stand threw a beer can. Well, people copied him, and more idiots threw beer cans on the field, okay? So while they're all figuring out, Sark's literally holding up his hands like saying, stop doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. The refs make a little circle and having a conference, and then they say, after further discussion, we have changed the play. There is no pass interference on the play. It is first down, Texas.
The crowd intimidated the refs? Really? Did that really happen?
Yeah, that happened. And I was like, why are they doing this? If you stick with the call on the field, it wasn't reviewed or anything. It's a non-reviewable play. And you're incentivizing the crowd for any time there is something bad happening to your team to throw objects onto the field and disrupt the game and potentially injure people.
Wow, that's crazy. That reminds me of something political, but I'm not going to mention it. That seems very much similar to people's irresponsibility, leading to some people choosing a certain direction because they're just cowardly. But anyway, yeah, that's very odd. Do you know particularly when that happened during the game?
Late third quarter,
Okay. Okay. I'll be
right
looking out for
before
that.
Texas scored the second touchdown.
Yes, I'll be looking out for that. As I was looking at the early games and I was watching Miami Louisville, and again, I saw about an hour, but it was a very interrupted, hectic hour because I'm helping my son get ready for his wedding. So I'm, obviously more important things going on, but I've got Indiana, Nebraska on, and I've got Louisville, Miami on. And what struck me about Indiana and Nebraska, other than Indiana, just is that Nebraska, okay, we go through this every season where and it seems like a greater amount of these teams this year that there's just this reason, whether it's because of tradition and name brand and all that, and it's been forever, like Nebraska, where we get this indication that they could be good, but we really don't know because they haven't played anyone. And they had some opportunity against Illinois. How good's Illinois? Well, Nebraska lost that game. Well, okay, let's see. They're 6-1, and are they really that good? And no, they're not good. They're not a good football team. All this hype was for nothing. They're really not a very good football team in any such way. They're just they have been lifted by a schedule that has been weak, and now they're probably really in for it the back half of the season. And I think Nebraska is the poster child this season. They are the Colorado. They're a slower burn of a Colorado type story from 2023 is what they are.
Well, that may be the case, and you may want to tell that to Jeffrey because I was listening to his post-game, Mark. I mean, they're going to win it all this year. Like, he was legitimately saying they could be a national championship contender this year. And I'm like, let's pump the brakes on national championship contender for Indiana. I think their odds of them making the playoffs now is around 66% chance, something like that.
Yeah.
The Michigan fans love the numbers I'll throw out, so I'll throw out another random number in Big Ten, 66%. For them to make the playoffs up. Mainly because I don't know how much of the Michigan-Illinois game you watched, but if you watched any previous Michigan game, okay, you can identify the exact same issues that occurred in this game. They have no offense. They have no quarterback. Tuttle is not the answer. They were talking about on the Michigan channel to go to this guy named Davis. That's
Yes.
like a true freshman guy that's
Jaden
not going to
Davis.
play next year.
Yeah.
They were already talking about, hiring the Indiana coach as their head coach for next year. That's how much in shambles they are, Mark.
Oh, I know. And they scored 7 points today against an Illinois team that gave up almost 600 yards against Purdue and 43 points last week. Wow. When I saw that score, and that was a difficult pick for me to make, but I'm glad I made the right one. And I said, I'll take Illinois. I'll take the points. I'll take them to win the game. And I want to go back and watch that one too, because I want to see how just marginal Michigan is, I guess. They really are. Some teams we get this indication, and I'm slow to form an opinion, which saves me a lot of embarrassment at times. But there are other times in which it's more like, okay, Mark, you should have really went all in on those early indications because they were true. And you see it twice or you see it 3 times, and I just can't quite believe it. And I didn't know that. I didn't in any way think Michigan was going to be contending for anything reasonable or anything meaningful this year. But 2-score loss at Illinois. Yeah, it's and they got tougher teams ahead.
Yeah, they're talking about not making a bowl game, losing to Indiana, how embarrassing that is. Oh, yeah, that's something else I want to bring up. This is the second time ever Army and Navy are both 6-0. And Army is 6-0 specifically in conference play, and they only got to play North Texas and I think UTSA is their only 2 games because the Navy game at the end of the year doesn't count. It's if you have an 11-1 Army with a close loss to Notre Dame, and they beat Navy, who's 11-1, or I guess 10-2 at that point. Is there any controversy between Boise State and Army to get into the playoffs?
And Boise State's going to be 11-1 as well, or 12-1 with the conference team. Well, obviously they're automatic that way. Well, they're not automatic. I'm sorry. 12-1 conference.
Both be 12-1.
Boise State.
Yeah. Well, is there any chance Army could get in? Because Mark, Army's such just a heartfelt American story.
Well,
I feel like the big brand bias we talk about really works for Army and Navy because everybody loves them. It'd be such a great story to see. And I could see the argument of, well, Boise State had their chance against Oregon, but why do we want to see a rematch if we put them in the 5 seed? And instead we can give them this new challenger.
I don't see it. I'm sorry. I think the playoff committee is going to have to do what's best, and they're going to have to evaluate these teams correctly. And it's going to take so much for Army to eclipse Boise State. If Boise State has a 3-point loss to a top 5 team in the country and wipes everybody else out and plays in a better conference. But I love all of the possible scenarios with Army and Navy. And I'm guessing Navy won today.
Easily. They easily won today. Okay. I mean, they've just been rolling everybody they've been playing.
Yeah, Mark. They have. And their best win's probably Memphis. They beat Memphis by, let's say, 12 points. So that's their best win. So we get into this whole struggle of look at these group of 5 teams and their impressive wins and impressive records, but they really haven't played anyone. But that's a fun one. And this whole oddity that they could play in the conference championship game and then turn around and have to play their annual Army-Navy game. It's
almost certainly going to happen. Army's 6-0 in conference play, and Navy's 5-0 in conference play. So they've both got a 2-game lead over Tulane in their conference. Now, Tulane's undefeated in their conference, so they can obviously, I don't know how the schedule's worked out, but they're legit good football teams. I'm not sure if you've seen any of them play this year, but they can throw the ball, Mark, now, and they've got the discipline and offense triple option, except they learned the forward pass this year. It's very fun to watch them play.
I got to say probably our best option at this point. I don't know how much of that's coming across as you taking over the analysis for the next couple hours. My son's dog's going nuts right now. but and I'm the only one in the house. I'm manning the house, so I've got dog duty tonight. Is what
Oh,
I
what
have.
fun!
But yeah, he's a great dog, but he's stirred up by something. I don't know what's going on. But
Yeah, that's how they
yeah,
are.
it's the Army Navy thing certainly needs to be addressed this week. I'm going to try to get to it because there's so much just nostalgia and fun there, and things that in play with those two teams that we haven't seen in forever and basically haven't seen ever. So that's, yeah, that's a whole lot of fun. And this 12 team playoff, see, it's giving us some drama, and it's given us some storylines that we wouldn't have had for sure.
I completely agree. Just a few more of those quick storylines I want to touch on is Alabama in the 12-team playoff may not make the 12-team playoff because they lost their second game today to Tennessee 24-17. Tennessee's offense, I guess, is slightly better than Alabama's secondary. Jalen Milroe throws some bad picks, especially the one to end the game. Uh, is this a Kalen DeBoer problem? I mean, you know how the Alabama fans are. They've lost two games. First time since 2007 they've lost two games this early in the season. So I don't know how much patience there is out there. And I knew there was people questioning the hire because you bring a guy from the Pac-12 into SEC country, and people just don't respect the Pac-12 as much as the SEC, even though they made the national championship last year.
Yeah, unfortunately for Kalen DeBoer, a few things might be converging here at the same time, and really only part of it's his fault. We might have been witnessing the same thing under Nick Saban this season. We might have, we'll never know. Uh, where Alabama is just, because the SEC, we're seeing this parity in the SEC among the top half of the SEC, or the top third of the SEC, that we haven't witnessed in all this time ever before. That maybe this is converging at the same time, and poor Kalen DeBoer just happens to be the recipient of it. That could be the case, but I'm not going to in any way. I don't want to discredit Nick Saban as the greatest coach of all time. Not that he was the greatest coach for sure in college football at the end of his career, but he wasn't that far off of his prime. That yeah, Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach, but we're going from the greatest of all time to just a really good football coach that maybe is having issues adjusting to a new program with new expectations and with the spotlight shining, exponentially more than whatever he ever experienced at Washington.
Right. And I mean, and now just the reality of the situation is setting in that they're the 15th best team instead of the fifth. I mean, this is suffering from success for everybody except for them in Ohio State, but it's just part of it. The job title. Another game I want to mention, two great games that nobody was talking about, was UCF Iowa State. Iowa State was down with 50 seconds to go. They had first and goal. They had an incomplete pass. Second and goal, their quarterback runs up the middles and scores. And they did the same thing on a 2-point conversion to get the game-winning score to 38-35. It was 31-35 previously. Does this tell you that Iowa State really isn't that great of a football team, and they're kind of fraudulent to be in the top 10, that they barely survived against a mediocre UCF team? And the other team I'll mention before you go with that is Missouri needed a 4th and 5 in order to keep a drive going against Auburn to beat Auburn today.
Iowa State's a good football team, but now when we talk good in this context, we're talking about playoff good. And sure, that doesn't mean that they can't compete and get to a playoff, but not be a playoff team. You know what I mean? Meaning top 11 best in the country? No. Playoff team out of the Big 12? Yes. Still in that talk, obviously still in the driver's seat to get that done. They played that game at home. See, had they traveled to UCF and played that sort of game, we see that out of teams more often when they have to travel. Iowa State has a decent football team. I think that they probably have I think it's a Kansas State, Iowa State. Who am I missing in the Big 12? I really think that those are the two
BYU.
best teams. BYU. Yeah. BYU. And I saw what they did last night. I saw the very tail end of that game and really wasn't, again, able to take it in. Just saw it on a screen in the corner of the room. But
Oh, and Texas Tech got crushed today.
and
They
I
lost by like
really,
30.
yeah, to Baylor and gave up a zillion points. The BYU story is interesting, but I think that Kansas State and Iowa State are the best teams, I believe, and I'm in the Kansas State camp in this one. They did kind of lose their minds one weekend against BYU on the road, but other than that, they've been the most consistent team. Yeah, I think this is a team that's a fringe top 25 team, legitimately in the country. I don't care what their record is, but when we're talking the top 25 teams in the country, playing I guess again, I didn't watch the game, but by the way you describe it in the final score, they're playing a C level game, and UCF played a really good. They had a good night, and they put it together. And we knew going into the season that UCF was going to put offensive games like this together. And then if they get a couple stops on defense, or the other team shoots themselves in the foot, if they're a superior team, then they're going to be able to hang in a game and give it a go. And that's apparently what happened tonight. I see the stats here. The Iowa State quarterback, Rocco Becht. Oh, that's an ugly game. 20 of 46 for 274. RJ Harvey, the UCF running back. There you go. He's running for $196. Caleb Johnson ran for almost 200 yards against Iowa State. So it looks like a good back and a decent offensive line is going to tear up Iowa State.
Right. And the final thing I guess I'll mention is the teams that embarrassed themselves tonight, Mark. Kentucky, I mean, just another day in the office for us, embarrassing ourselves, losing to 28 to Florida. University of Southern California, they lost to Maryland, and Oklahoma got throttled by South Carolina. I mean, it was 21-0 before you even knew the game was on. It's 35-9 as a final.
And they had 2 defensive touchdowns, I believe, in the first half. Out of those 21, again, I'm watching 2 other games, and I thought in the updates I saw like 2 strip sacks, or it was a horrendous interception thrown by Michael Hawkins, the Oklahoma quarterback. I think he got hit at the same time, and he threw it to some safety who was just standing in the middle of the field, who then ran like 50 yards for a touchdown. The other was a scoop and score off a strip sack. Yeah, Oklahoma. Oh my goodness. They are terrible on offense. Yes, they've been injured, and I've given them excuses for the injuries, the 5 wide receivers and all that. But this is, you still have 2 running backs. You still have a quarterback situation. Jackson Arnold's disappointing play, his lack of being able to come through and be a big-time quarterback might be the most crippling, disappointing performance that cost a particular team this year.
And that's saying something, because there's been some bad quarterback play.
Ones out there. Just look at the Michigan quarterback situation. Yes.
Yeah, that is a bold statement. But Mark, that's really all I got for you. I was glad to talk to you, and pray for the Michigan man, Mark, because they need they need a quarterback. So maybe you can start a GoFundMe for their quarterback funds, because they're looking for one.
All right, Darrell, have a good one. Appreciate it. And let me clarify there. I am not saying that Oklahoma's situation at quarterback is worse than Michigan's. What I'm saying is that Jackson Arnold came into the season as a near 5-star quarterback who was being groomed for the job. They let Oklahoma let Dylan Gabriel go, run off to Oregon, and determine that Jackson Arnold was that good to ride with going into the SEC. He is clearly not. He had the 1 game played, much like Miller Moss, much like Garrett Nussmeier. He had the 1 game played in the bowl game, threw 3 picks, but threw for a ton of yardage, looked impressive for the most part against Arizona. And then it comes up to quarterback evaluation. Comes down to, more so than at any point in our history in college football, it comes down to quarterback evaluation and making this determination. Because prior to the transfer portal, teams were stuck with what they recruited. And it was like, okay, well, we have no choice but to develop what we have and make the best selection and develop this guy. But now we have the determination. Do we stay with what we've got and develop these guys? Do we have the guy here, or do we have an opportunity? Of course you do, if you're Oklahoma, to go out and get somebody else. And bad decisions were made at the quarterback position at Florida State, going with DJ Uiagalelei, at Michigan, not getting a transfer quarterback, at Auburn, not replacing Peyton Thorne and going to the transfer portal, and this situation with Oklahoma, letting Dylan Gabriel go to Oregon. All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. Oh, by the way, Jim R., thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Congrats, Mark and family. So Jim has donated to the hole in my pocket after a wedding and all of that business. But glad to do it, of course. It was one of the most joyous days of my life, seeing my son marry a very beautiful and, more importantly, a great girl. Okay, we'll keep it rolling here. We got Caden, the man on the line. Caden, what's going on tonight?
Good evening, Mark. Wow, college football just turned the head completely.
Yes.
And I'm not upset, just so you're clear.
You're not upset. Okay.
And did Georgia just become the most unhinged team today?
Unhinged? Usually unhinged is used for a team or a situation, a person that in a negative connotation.
No, this unhinged, I mean, is the unhinged Georgia team that everybody remembers for the last 2 years being just as dominant as they just did to Texas.
Well, yeah, Georgia's back. They're the Georgia that we expected Georgia to be. They are the Georgia of 2021 and 22, a much different, we can make all sorts of comparisons about where they're better, where they're not as good. Is Carson Beck a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett? Do they not have a Brock Bowers at tight end? All those parts and pieces. But in totality, yes, this is what Georgia has done for the last even 5 to 7 years, is marched into a place like Texas and taking their lunch money and slap him around. And we didn't expect that. I didn't expect. I picked Georgia to win the game, but it looks like they were rather dominant at 23-0. And we're only slightly challenged there where it got to 23-15 for a moment. But yeah, we many people wrote off Georgia way too quickly.
I didn't have Georgia wrote off 100%. I had
you and
them.
me.
I'm just gonna say the SEC is not going to be a safe division this year as long as Georgia's as much unhinged as they are right now.
So you're saying that the SEC is Georgia's, that you saw enough tonight to know that the SEC is Georgia's to win? Or
pretty much win 100%, no questions asked. Ole Miss is doomed, Tennessee is doomed, and pretty much everybody else on Georgia's schedule's doomed.
Okay. Well, you may be right. Because Kirby Smart is just that good, and this behemoth that he's built at Georgia through the best recruiting in the country and all that they are could be finally taking shape. But also, as we may have overreacted, and again, I'm not putting myself in this bucket because I was not the one to overreact, but a lot of people did, and it sounds like you were not either, throwing dirt on Georgia's grave. We should also just take into consideration, yeah, they put it all together tonight. They played another great game tonight, but let's not discount these other teams. I think we're just going to continue to see this throughout the college football season. I came home tonight and I flipped on that game and I thought, I was quick to make that, oh, wow, Georgia's back. And wow, they're lights out, and look at what they're doing to Texas. And it is impressive, and it's very important. It might be the most important score of the college football season thus far. But also, I think we're going to continue to see twists and turns throughout this season where we're going to anoint this team and then it's going to switch to that team and that team and that team. But they're in that 5 to 7 range, those 5 to 7 teams that can win a national championship.
Well, then the other thing was Ohio State, yeah, took the 1 L, but you know what? We'll see Oregon back at the Big Ten title game.
Possibly.
And we'll win that game. But as far as I'm concerned, we'll win Nebraska, we'll win it against Indiana, and then we'll beat Penn State, Michigan, and Northwestern. That's no questions asked.
Yes, well, that's your forecast and prediction, and that is probably going to happen. I believe that Ohio State's going to win the rest of its games, but it certainly has shown that it can be vulnerable. So, and Nebraska, that game that we were anticipating being somewhat of a game, I don't expect. Nebraska, is not a good football team. But Ohio State should go to the Big Ten championship and have a rematch with Oregon. But Indiana's going to have something to say about it, and Penn State. Those two teams are going to have something to say about it. They're going to be in the path.
Well, Penn State and Indiana, I'm not worried about both of them. The only thing we're just going to do is run them down. That's all. That's enough.
I hear you. And you might be right, Caden. But again, you said the same thing about Oregon.
Now, don't go backfiring on me, Mark, already. Now,
bringing it up. I'm being fair about this, Caden. I'm just letting you know. All right, Caden. Do you have anything else for us?
Nope, and go Bucks. We'll see you on the playoffs.
All right, Caden. Thanks for being here. All right. I was rather kind to Caden, right? That's fine. We like when Caden calls, but Caden was predicting 49-0 against Oregon. I was just reminding him, hey, let's not discount these other games for the Buckeyes. Yes. Do I think Ohio State's the best team in the Big Ten? Yes. Do I think that they're going to rematch Oregon? Yes. Do I think it's a sure thing? Absolutely not. It's not a sure thing. Minnesota Dave's dropping by. Minnesota Dave, what's going on tonight?
Hey, congratulations to your son and daughter-in-law.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it was a big day.
No, it's always good to have at least a wedding on a bye week. You don't have to worry about your team.
Yes. Although here at the Voice of College Football, we have no bye weeks, but that's quite all right. That was much more important, but and so we stepped away. Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for that, Minnesota Dave.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I enjoyed a lot of the games today. It's always great when my Gophers were on a bye week too, so I was able just to watch games and observe and just enjoy the games and not worry about my dang team playing. But I would have to say this was a very, very good week just to be on a bye week and just watch these games because there was a lot of good games. A lot of them were interesting, great endings and just the way they went. But here's the thing. How good is Maryland and how good is Michigan State? Because they are the most unpredictable teams I've ever seen.
Yeah. I don't want to lay this on Corey. We're going to have an interesting discussion, I guess, on Tuesday with Iowa. But I missed the day in college football for the most part. I come home, immediately go to Texas, Georgia. There's 10 minutes left. It's 30-15. Then I'm thinking about who else do I want to check in on? I saw nothing of Michigan State, Iowa, but I flip on the NBC broadcast and I see them interviewing Michigan State players on the field. And I thought, Michigan State won this game, huh? Which shouldn't be some great shock because Iowa's not a great football team, but these are the games they win. They kind of trudge through and beat all the lesser teams in the Big Ten. And then it sounded like it was a late game field goal or something. Then I see the final score 32-20 and I thought, how close was this game if Michigan State won by 12?
Iowa held Michigan State to so many field goal tries, and Michigan State, I think, hit 7 field goals. I want to say, well, maybe maybe 6, probably 6. I think it was 6. I think they went for 7 field goals, missed one of them at the end of the first half, and then they hit every one of them, pretty much. And then it took a while for them to get in the end zone. Then they finally got in the end zone, and they held Johnson. They only had one big play the whole entire game, so that they played great defense. And that quarterback for Iowa, McNamara, they have to. He cannot play the next game. He is so bad. So many plays. He had 2. I think he had 1 interception, was just completely nowhere close to the wide receiver and just right into the safety's hands.
So this is great that you bring this up, Dave, because this was constant talk that we had with Corey every week. And my recommendation was, okay, you got Cade McNamara, who the only thing he's done in college, which was a great accomplishment, but took a Michigan team that had a top 5 rushing attack in America that safeguarded him, a great offensive line that won the Joe Moore Award, one of the best defenses in the country, and win the Big Ten championship. He rarely had to be leaned on for him to win a game. And then we've got Brendan Sullivan, more mobile quarterback. By all indications, Tim Lester, the offensive coordinator, said a number of times during fall camp that he was progressing well, that the superlatives were all over the place, that they couldn't have come out this season where they were the better team the first 3 or 4 games of the season and play both guys and see who would win the job. It just didn't make any sense to me. And here we go. Cade McNamara is just playing lousy football, and Brendan Sullivan could have been getting all these reps.
Yeah, that's the thing, because that guy from Northwestern that they got, their other quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Brendan Sullivan. Yeah.
I don't know his name offhand. I'm sorry. But he scored a touchdown. He ended up driving them down the field, and then they stopped using him and went back to McNamara, and that's when McNamara throws this interception. I'm like, how the heck are you putting this guy back out there? You just had success with your one quarterback, and now you're not going to use him again?
And Minnesota Dave, this is another situation where Iowa's, and this is another thing we've talked about during the offseason, Corey and I, a number of times. Okay, the special teams and the defense have been so good, it's like a given that, you're going to have a top 5 defense in the country. You're going to have one of the best special teams in the country. What happens when they're merely good? They're not great, but you got a good defense, but you don't have a great defense.
Yeah.
You're going to need an offense. You're going to need more explosive plays. And here they are. Their defense is not dominant this year. It's human. It's still a good defense.
Oh, yeah, it's still a really good defense.
But it's not a great defense.
It's just that backfield is not all that great as it used to be.
Yes.
Cooper DeJean was the backfield for Iowa last year.
Yeah, well, I don't want to state it to that degree. He's in the NFL starting right now, but he's really, really good. But they had Sebastian Castro and other guys that were really good, Quinn Schulte. But this is the problem with playing Iowa kind of football, is that when one of these units falters just a little bit, and you've relied on run the ball, and just this minuscule passing attack, then these are the kind of results. You're going to start losing to, what we thought was a bad Big Ten team.
Yeah. And another bad Big Ten that we thought would be a bad Big Ten is Maryland, and they go and they play USC and end up coming back and winning that game.
I didn't even know that. I had no idea. Oh, my goodness. Maryland. I did not even consider that. Oh, my goodness. Look at that. 29-28. Oh, I got to check the highlights on that one.
Oh, me too. Me too. I haven't seen this game because I thought USC would have it in the bag.
Oh man, USC has lost to Maryland and Minnesota. Oh, well,
And yeah, and,
as
and
you know,
barely beat Michigan
barely beat Michigan
and lost to Penn
lost
State.
Penn State, which there's no. They've played so well against like Penn State. They got a lot of talent in areas, but they're a dysfunctional football team. And if you would have told any USC fan, and we got our USC channel, so I'm seeing USC comments a lot from their fans, and fan bases are unreasonable and irrational, and they overrate their team. But still, if you would have said USC is going to lose to Minnesota and Maryland,
yeah, I would have called you crazy.
Minnesota, Dave, I warned USC fans, and I did think that USC was going to be about the 5th or 6th best team in the conference. That's about where I had them. That I still said, though, they had that stretch starting with, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I'm not putting them in order. And later it's going to be Nebraska and Rutgers, this game against Maryland. And what I kept claiming was, yes, USC is better than each one of them individually, but this is a Big Ten schedule that just every week. It's tougher teams, more physical teams than what they saw in the Pac-12. And when you got to go through that meat grinder week after week after week after week, then you start losing to Minnesota or Maryland amongst your wins against Wisconsin and whomever else. Yeah.
Yeah. It also doesn't help the travel either. They'll go back to LA and then go into Rutherford, New Jersey, and then back home. And then, it doesn't help them to go for all those time changes.
And we're going to track that 2 or 3 time zone record because it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Is that the only one we had? Well, we had UCLA went to Rutgers and won today. That was the other one out of the 2 to 3 time zone deal.
But have you caught a little bit of this Oregon State and Oregon State and UNLV right now. Yeah. So this is an interesting game. This is a much win for UNLV to really have any shot at the playoffs and then to beat Boise next week.
Sure. Well, yeah, you're right. It is. And we got just started the 4th quarter, UNLV 23-17.
Well, that's it for me, Mark. Again, congratulations to your son and daughter-in-law again.
Thank you. Very nice of you.
Have a nice day, okay?
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Good night. Let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. And again, we've got 2 games in progress, and you see them on the board there. TCU leads at Utah 10-0. I was having just a little fun with some Big 12 fans this week. I posted a short, and the only response that the only point I was making there was that Utah going into this week was 2-2 in the Big 12. I believe that was the record. Yes, 2-2 in the Big 12. And yes, it's right there. Okay, it says 1-2, but they played Baylor as a non-conference game, so they were 2-2 against Big 12 teams. And I saw a lot of Big 12 fans having all sorts of, big yucks about this. And it was just funny because Utah's 2 losses in the Big 12 were against teams that came with them from the Pac-12, Arizona and Arizona State. And me hearing from Big 12 fans that, see, we told you that Utah, that the Big 12 was this good kind of thing. Okay. All right, let's keep it rolling. We got Defiant on the line. Defiant, how you doing?
I am doing good, Mark. How are you doing?
I am doing just fine. Appreciate you calling. What's going on tonight?
Yeah, Rutgers is very surprising. I know they lost to Wisconsin last week, and then they go out and lose to UCLA today. I don't know what's going on at Piscataway, but I don't think you should be losing to UCLA at home. when you have the advantage of the time change and the travel, and just to go out there and lose to UCLA, who's one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, is not very, nice and pleasing to the fan base at all.
Well, it's not a big surprise, but you're right. You shouldn't lose if you're Rutgers when a team has to travel all the way across the country. And UCLA and Purdue have been by far, up until this weekend, and kind of last weekend, because when you think about it, Purdue took Illinois to overtime and UCLA took Minnesota. They had a lead with 25 seconds left in the game, or they would have won the game. So Purdue and UCLA should have notched their first Big Ten wins last weekend. So let's give it up for UCLA, especially UCLA. Now, Purdue ran into a buzzsaw with Oregon. But so especially UCLA, this is now the second straight week that they've played much better football against, well, I'll say Minnesota's a decent team. Rutgers, we thought, was a decent team. So Ethan Garbers throws 4 touchdown passes, runs for another 5 touchdowns. So I would have expected, if UCLA wins this game over Rutgers, that Rutgers at least plays really good rush defense, defense overall. It's a 17-14 kind of game. And it looks like Rutgers, they got trounced by Wisconsin last week and gave up a ton of yardage in that game. That Rutgers, apparently we kind of jumped the gun on Rutgers. I did a little bit too. I was a little hopeful that they were actually somewhat legitimate. I knew that they weren't a championship caliber team. I knew that. But there were all sorts of people out there. And it's fun to do early in the season when you see a team that's got a favorable schedule like Rutgers. Oh my goodness. I think you realize this, Defiant. They don't play Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, possibly the 5 best teams in the conference. They don't play. So they had it all set up for them this year to do something, to get to a better bowl game, get to a playoff. Some people actually threw that out there, not me. But you can't lose this game at home against UCLA.
No, and I definitely do agree that Rutgers could have had an Indiana-type season so far in this first half of the schedule and throughout the rest of the year. But again, UCLA, I know it's competitive now, but they're still probably going to be bottom 2 in the Big Ten this year. So, I get losing to them at the Rose Bowl because you have to travel east to west, and, that's not always the best, for the players and everything. But going east to west, I would at least figured, you're playing them at home. You're playing them, I don't know what the weather was like there, probably, at least in the 60s or whatever. But still, you're playing them when the time change is different. And, they haven't been decent in the first half of the season, but I guess now they're starting to get a little bit more competitive. But again, I'm happy for UCLA. I think I would love to see them against Purdue to see who actually is the worst between the two, if there is actually a difference in talent level compared between the two.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had to check the schedule last week because I thought, okay, these are by far the 2 worst teams in the Big Ten because that's how they were playing. But I looked at the schedules and said, okay, they're not playing. I wish they were. And you got to be a real college football nerd like myself to be wishing that UCLA and Purdue were playing just to see who is definitively the worst team in the Big Ten. But now with these results the past 2 weeks, especially on the UCLA side, playing Minnesota to the wire and then going across country to beat Rutgers, and you look at Rutgers at 1-3 after the performance against Wisconsin, you can't say that this is a one-off, that UCLA is not a better team than Rutgers. Maybe they are.
Oh, no, I definitely agree. I didn't think UCLA would be this bad to start out with. I knew they probably wouldn't be going, bowling maybe in the first year in the Big Ten compared to the other teams. But I think UCLA a 3 to 4 win team under a first year head coach in a brand new conference. Don't get me wrong. I think UCLA could be competitive. And I thought they would be so far this season. And through the first 4 or 5 games, they didn't seem like they were that competitive besides the Hawaii game, but they played a lower end team in Hawaii. So I knew they would at least be decent. I just didn't know when they would be in the schedule they have.
Yeah, we had a conversation this week with our buddy Corey Bretta about who are truly the just bad teams in the Big Ten, and we came up with a list of UCLA, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, and there might have been somebody else there that I'm missing. And while that could be true, now again we have UCLA beating Rutgers on the road, traveling across the country. And again, this isn't just a one-off. UCLA played a competitive game against a decent team the week before. So I don't know where we can go for the definitive worst team or teams in the Big Ten. If Purdue follows up what they did 2 weeks ago, okay, we'll forget about what happened Friday night. Yeah, Oregon's just that good. That if Purdue can be competitive in some of their games against the worst teams in the Big Ten, I don't know that we can definitively say there is a worse team in the Big Ten. But for right now, it's definitely Purdue right now, because UCLA has lifted themselves out of that argument.
And I mean, Purdue plays Northwestern next week at home. Looking at their schedule, they play Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, and Indiana.
Yep.
So, I mean, if they would get a Big Ten win, it would be next week against Northwestern.
Yep. That would be the one.
And speaking of the Big Ten, too, shout out to Maryland. And I know Maryland last week lost to Northwestern by 27. So it's funny to see USC blow a 14-point lead.
So in our worst discussion, our discussion of worse, Maryland was in that discussion, but they have erased themselves for the time being after losing to Northwestern by 27 points. Yeah, they beat USC, and here we go. We got a USC team that can compete with Penn State 1 week and actually outplay Penn State, take them to overtime, and then they can lose to Maryland, who was arguably the worst team in the whole conference. Crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the super conferences play out now, especially at the lower end of like the Big Ten, SEC, where all these teams you thought would be good beat up on other teams that you thought would be good or at least be decent. And I see that a lot now with UCLA beating Rutgers and then Maryland beating USC because, yeah, USC had a 14-point lead in the fourth and blew that against Maryland, who lost again Northwestern last week by 27. And don't get me wrong, Maryland is decent. They're not the best in the Big Ten. They're decent. They'll get 7 wins, maybe 8 wins at most, but they're not like a super, competitive team sometimes.
So
to put our decade or so.
To put our conversation in context, and we'll have to see how it plays out. But right now we are basically at the midpoint of the season because I'm looking at these records and everyone has either played 4 or 5 games in the Big Ten. So obviously they play 9 games. So we're right at the halfway point. Once we get to the end of the season, we're going to have the 3 or 4 teams at the bottom of the Big Ten with wins. And I'm not talking about 1 win, 2 wins, probably 5, 6 wins at least over teams that we thought and would actually finish the season like generally mid-tier Big Ten. And I don't know that we could have said that in other seasons.
No, I definitely do think this is kind of more of a competitive season in terms of the talent level in the conference. For a lot of those years, the Big Ten East was always the best. The Big Ten West was always a toss-up between Iowa, Wisconsin, Purdue last couple of years in early like 2021, 2022. So I mean, now you have teams that are more competitive and will beat up on each other each week, and then you have teams that have at the bottom with like 6 wins, but they have like 6 losses in the conference compared to other teams as well. So I definitely do think this is more of a year that's more competitive, especially with the additions of the 4 Pac-12 schools.
Yes, I personally had a great day in my family and so forth, but looking at all these scores just makes me think that, man, I want to go back and watch all these games, and I certainly don't have the time to watch like 25 football games, but I'm just curious to see Illinois and Michigan, for example, to see this Maryland USC game and how that unfolded, that USC blows this lead. Wow.
Yeah, it's just classic USC at that point. Like, you had to imagine that USC's defense was going to give up eventually at some point during the season. And you've seen it a little bit already. And this is just kind of like the tail end of that giving up point for USC. So I really mean it,
And the conventional thought, though, Defiant, would have been that, a team traveling all the way across the country that's maybe started to, I don't want to say that USC is a bunch of quitters or anything like that, because I think that would be very unfair. But maybe there's got to be some doubts even prior to this game against Maryland. Some thoughts and doubts in their mind that, okay, what are we playing for now? Our season's lost. And that starts to tear a team down. But you would have thought that would have shown up early in the game against Maryland, that they would have come out a bit asleep and with little punch out of the gate. But they had a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter and collapsed.
Yeah, and again, I didn't watch that game personally. I did see the last little bit of it. So again, I didn't know that USC got out to, the impressive start. But I think there's a difference between like a Florida State type season this year and just a regular season. Like, what are we playing for? Like, I think USC is trying to figure out again, like, what are we playing for? What's the end goal here? Like, is there a goal of making a bowl game, or is it just to see where we actually finish off at? Because again, there's two different mindsets to that as well. Like, if you want to make a bowl game, you have to start playing better. You have to, not give up 2 touchdown leads in the fourth quarter and lose, compared to, are we just playing to see how many wins we get or something like that?
Yeah, it comes down to culture, and if these athletes have enough pride, have enough, don't want to use the term love. I don't know if that's the right word. Maybe sometimes it is, but respect for each other, to continue to fight for each other and be good teammates and all those other things, but also looking out for their own futures, to put out a strong effort the rest of the year when the season's lost. USC's got 4 losses. What are they playing for? This is not 1995. This is not 2005 when there was a level of credibility given to going 8-4 and getting to a decent bowl game. Some people will still give that credit to a team, me included. I still look, we had a conversation with, I think it was Steve Dace a few weeks ago about he could care less. Michigan goes 8-4, they go 4-8. It's the same season. Doesn't matter if you don't make the playoff. I don't agree with that, but I don't disagree with the people that it's all perception. So I don't feel that way, but I do understand that opinion and that perspective that if you don't make the playoff, what's it matter what your record is?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. I don't really like that it's about the playoff or nothing really at all. Like,
I don't.
There's more meaning to a season than making a playoff. Not everybody can make the playoff. Only a top 12 make the playoff. Now, so what's the rest going to really do? What's their goal? What's their mission? Some teams want to make a bowl game. Some teams historically haven't been that good. Making a bowl game is like proving that program was on a turnaround or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
but we're talking about teams like USC.
Oh no, I was gonna get to that point. Like then, like teams like historically like USC again. Yeah, what are they playing for? They're used to competing for championships with Pete Carroll and all that stuff. But again, there was a time in their 90s that USC wasn't really that good. They weren't really competing that much on the field in the Pac-10. They were struggling a little bit. So again, I don't know what USC is playing for. Again, I wouldn't mind if USC just makes plays for a bowl game, just because you're in a tougher conference. This ain't the Pac-12, and you're in the Big Ten. Teams beat up on each other every year towards the middle of the pack and towards the bottom. Again, you have teams that 6-6 but have a record of 3-6 in the conference, or teams of 5-7 records of 3-6 in the conference. It's always been like that. You always have teams that will be beat up on each other each and every week.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are going to go at the end of the year and they're going to add up the records of these 4 Pac-12 schools to try to determine, me included, I will do the same thing, but I'll put it in context. What are their records now that they've played a full season of the Big Ten? USC went fill in the blank 4-5, and Oregon went 8-1, and UCLA did this, and Washington did that. So let's add up that record. this is who they play, and then take out those games that they played against each other, and then, okay, how did they fare against the old guard of the Big Ten? Well, we have to take this into context that these were 4 of the best schools in the Pac-12, and really 3 of the very best, and even UCLA the last few years has been a better team in the Pac-12. Now, they were not supposed to be this year, so they should have a winning record. These 4 schools, if the Pac-12 is nearly as good as the Big Ten, or the Pac-12 that was just the one that just imploded, nearly as good as the Big Ten, then these 4 schools should have a strong record against Big Ten teams.
Yes, that is very true. Again, those are the top 3 brands in the Pac-12, but I think it comes down to the talent they have in the roster, the coaching, and how they implement their schemes. Again, you can have the biggest brand in the country, I would think, but it comes down to how your coaching is and how your schemes and how the talent, how you work the schemes with your talent. And I really do think, again, some of these teams are struggling with the talent gap, I would imagine, a little bit, competing with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State on the field. And I know USC, was competitive with Penn State and you lost in overtime, but still, I don't think they're quite to that level yet where they can compete on an annual basis with the big 3.
Yes. All right, Defiant. Anything else?
Well, I'll also get to 2 other points, but I'll make one point quickly. SMU is considered now my dark horse for the ACC. They have a big game against Duke, and then they play Pittsburgh. Can you see them potentially pushing themselves into a potential playoff spot if Miami or Clemson falls up somewhere down the line?
Well, SMU does not necessarily, who knows what the tiebreaker is. This would be a dilemma, and I brought this up this week already. SMU, Clemson, and Miami all go undefeated in the ACC, and you have to leave out so it's going to be one thing to have a log jam for first or second place in one of these conferences and have to leave somebody out. It's another thing when these teams are undefeated and you have to leave one of them out. And when I say undefeated, I mean within the conference. Leave one of them out of the conference championship. Leave a team out that went this, and this is the byproduct of these massive conferences. Leaving a team out that went undefeated, leaving them out of the conference championship game. But they're going to have to. There's only 2 spots. So I want that to happen just to prove how silly and pathetic these conferences are being this large. So of course SMU has that opportunity. Sure they do. And I don't know I know what the tiebreaker system is. I know what the 1 through 5 is or whatever, but I just don't know how it would play out between those 3. We could have a Clemson SMU conference championship game where most college football fans would want it to be and expect it to be Clemson and Miami.
I thought it would be that too, but then SMU, started winning some games, and I know that one loss is a BYU, but that looks to be a good loss now where BYU is playing at. I would just think eventually, I would think we will go to a tiebreaker system where we have co-champions instead of having a conference championship between the 2 best teams, because, now these conferences are getting bigger and bigger now. There's going to be a year or 2 where you have multiple teams that are undefeated that don't play each other in the conference. And you have to determine, okay, like Miami and SMU, they don't play each other, but they're both undefeated. How would we, work that system out if Clemson's undefeated too? So eventually, I would think we would I don't know if we would get rid of a conference championship, but at least come up with a better system and kind of figure out how, if 3 teams are more, tied for first place and they don't play each other, how would that really work?
Well, with all due respect, why is a system where there is simply a season played and then a tiebreaker given to determine the conference champion, how is that any better than trying to get at least 2 of those best teams into a conference championship game?
Well, I was saying we have co-champions of the conference.
Okay, and then who gets the automatic spot in the playoff especially from a league that only gets one team into the playoff.
Well, you gotta have to go to like a kind of a tiebreaker system.
Well, yeah, we already have that.
I know we have that, but I'm just saying though, in terms of like people, people getting mad over, one team didn't get in over the other team if they didn't play each other.
Yeah, we're looking at it right now. 4 teams are undefeated in the ACC. Clemson doesn't play Miami. SMU doesn't play Miami. SMU doesn't play Clemson. I don't know about Pitt. I know that
Yeah,
Pitt
they do.
plays
They play Pitt.
Clemson. I don't know if they play the other two. If we looked at Pitt.
Yeah, Pitt plays SMU not this week coming up, but the next week at Pittsburgh.
But does not play Miami?
That's a very good question. Okay. I know, again, SMU plays Pitt.
All right. So we have all sorts of possibilities there of teams that could. I want to see 3 teams go undefeated out of those. And for sure, it could be Clemson, Miami, and SMU.
Pitt plays Clemson.
Yeah, I just stated that. So okay, yeah. I was just wanting to know if Pitt plays Miami.
No, they do not. No.
Okay, there you go. So we've got a number of possibilities there.
Well, yeah. Because I would say if Pittsburgh loses to Clemson, they will have 1 loss, and then
really
have Miami and Clemson undefeated.
Yeah, since Pitt plays both SMU and Clemson, then really the route that we're talking about is Clemson, Miami, and SMU.
Yeah. Because SMU only plays Pittsburgh out of those 4 as well. And they play Duke as well.
Yeah, we need SMU to beat Pitt. And those 3 teams at the top there to all go undefeated. And there's a lot of football to be played, obviously. Clemson has 3 more games, Miami 3. Clemson 3, Miami and SMU 5. And Pitt still has 6 games to play. So we're just talking fun stuff. That most likely gets worked out. I hate those people that say, I don't hate the people. I hate when they say it's going to work itself out. They're right most of the time. Most of the time it does work itself out, but that doesn't mean you don't determine a better process. And it doesn't always work itself out, and it won't always work itself out. I guarantee that out of these 4 conferences, we're going to have at least one of these 4 conferences have some ridiculous logjam, either tied for first place, like a 4-way tie for first place, or a 3-way tie for second place to determine who's going to play the first place team in the conference championship game in one of these 4 conferences. And we really want it to be in either the Big 12 or the ACC, where only the champion might make the playoff. If it happens in the Big 10 or the SEC, it's not the end of the world, because all those teams are going to make the playoffs anyway.
No, I definitely agree. And again, if it happens to be a logjam, and then people try to figure out, okay, who gets to be the second best team in ACC against the first best team. If it is Clemson, and just be interesting to see how that works out if it does play itself out, or Pittsburgh somehow goes undefeated, goes 12-0 or 11-1. I don't know. It'd be really interesting to see.
All right, Defiant. Anything else?
No, Mark, that is it.
Appreciate you calling.
Thank you, Mark.
Have a good night. Filet-O-Fish. Why is Mark dressed up? This is the new dress code at the Voice of College Football. You are going to tune into all of our channels for all of our shows, and all hosts will be wearing a shirt and tie. Dress shirt and tie. That is the new dress code at the Voice of College Football. All right, we got Michael on the line. Michael, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, how you doing, sir?
I am doing just fine. What's going
on?
Not
much. Congrats to your son and his and your daughter-in-law. I wish them a lifetime of happiness.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Anyway, I was going to say, I was kind of trying to get on last night, but I guess they only cut it to an hour for the post-game show because I was going to talk to about the Oregon game. But It is what it is. I'm not really surprised, but Purdue, I felt they had opportunity. They just couldn't get the passing game going. But anyway,
I'm sorry to interrupt real quick. Did you say that Purdue had an opportunity?
no, to score a couple times, not to win the
okay.
game.
Okay. All right.
But I
Let me
gotta
clarify
say,
there.
yeah, I gotta say this though. Indiana's for real.
What does that mean?
That means the
For
more
real?
the more the game goes, the stronger they get.
No, but what does that mean? They're for real to you.
Keep,
I hear the term all the time. I just clarifying, Michael. I just
to
want to know
me,
for
it's
you,
a
what does
team.
that mean?
To me, it's a team I don't want to play.
Okay. All right.
What's your take? What's your definition of for real?
Well, it depends on the team. If you're saying like Ohio State's for real this year, then that means that they have a legitimate like chance to win the national championship. That's almost every year, so that might be a bad example. But if you Indiana being who Indiana is, if we determine okay, they're for real, to me that means that they have truly taken a step, like major steps in the right direction. And I think they've already proven that. For real, I guess, are they a threat to go to the Big Ten championship game?
Yeah, whether or not they get there, because ironically, they don't play Oregon and they don't play Penn State.
Yeah, so their game in Columbus is huge.
Yep. And I can only imagine what the spread would be for that game, especially if I use 10-0 going to that game.
The Indiana Ohio State spread, if they play similar to the way they have been playing, I'd say Ohio State's probably going to be about a 14 to 17 point favorite.
So you still think it'll be double digits?
Oh, yeah.
But how surprised, I will say this though. When IU marched on the way they did in the first series today when the game started, I said to myself and someone else, they're winning the game. I didn't think it was going to be 56-7.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of the game, and I was kicking myself because I did pick Indiana to win, but I took Nebraska in those 6.5 points because Indiana's a well-oiled offensive machine. They have real playmakers on that team, and Curtis Rourke is a heck of a quarterback.
Yep. Don't know what his situation will be for next week though, but I think from what I heard, because he hit it like on his throwing motion, I guess he split his fingernail. So they had it wrapped up, and I think he might have had a couple of stitches, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that would be too bad if that affected him. I had to turn the game off right around the time that happened. And Joel Klatt was talking about how that impacts a quarterback and just the touch on the ball and trying to make touch passes and having a real feel for the football.
But no, another thing I'm trying to figure out too is you said Purdue has a bye week next week, so they play Northwestern in 2 weeks.
Okay.
It changes even though Northwestern, they lose 25-3 today.
Who?
Northwestern.
Yeah, 23-3.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe that might be the game that Purdue win, but who knows though? We'll see.
For you, Michael, with Purdue, I wanted to see a matchup this weekend similar to what UCLA had because Purdue woke up last week against Illinois and UCLA woke up against Minnesota, and they both lost, but they showed that they could compete down to the last play of the game against a mid-level Big Ten team. So UCLA now got an opportunity to take on another mid to lower level team in the Big Ten, and they won. Yeah. It would have been nice to see Purdue match up, let's say, this weekend, instead of coming off that game against Illinois and running right into Oregon, running into Northwestern this week, just to see if they could have worked off of the momentum and all the things that they established and all the good things they did against Illinois that they could have taken from that game directly into another game the next weekend. And I see our guy Ryan Brown, who I am very excited to see play someday. Did not see this game against Oregon. I was tied up, could not watch the game. But, you know, he had that great stat line against Illinois. I guess I could go back and watch some of that game. But shoot,
Yeah.
300 yards passing and 100 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Is he supposed to be the future?
Yeah. I
He
really
looks
think
like it.
even though he didn't have a good night passing the ball last night, because I mean, like, there was like hardly no time. And like, it seemed like the offense was like 80-20 run pass last night. But I don't know. It is what it is. I mean, they're good in rushing and stuff like that. But I'm gonna ask you this: did you pick Texas or did you pick Georgia?
Georgia.
What made you pick them?
This is one of these spots that if you've watched a lot of college football, I could just see there's just been so much hype around Texas. And yes, they're playing well, but who have they really played? This Michigan game, obviously, we're seeing that disintegrate by the week, how important or how meaningful that blowout was at Michigan. And sure, they beat. Look at Oklahoma. Oklahoma lost as bad today against South Carolina than they did against Texas. So Texas's resume is mighty thin, and I just thought when a team has as much championship pedigree as Georgia does, and a coach who knows what he's doing, he's coached in so many big games, and they get kicked around a little bit and told that they're not that good, and they're an underdog for the first time in forever.
Were they an underdog going into the game?
5-point underdog.
Wow, that's surprising. And I'm still trying to figure out how Georgia ended up winning with Beck throwing 3 picks.
Yeah, I didn't see I think I saw the last one, but they were so far ahead it didn't matter. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Was you surprised about Tennessee and Alabama?
Surprised? No. I thought I did pick Alabama to win, but I had to think about it. No, I'm not surprised. It was a close game, and Tennessee won.
Yeah, in my opinion, right now, Alabama doesn't have discipline.
Well, I think that's a good point. I think you're right.
And who's to say right now that they should be, what are they, 5-2? Or are they 6-2?
Alabama, I don't know how many wins they have. I think they're 5-2.
What's to say they, and all honesty, maybe they should be 4-3 right now.
What game are you talking about? The Georgia game?
Nope, the South Carolina game.
Oh, well, yeah. And they could have lost to Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Alabama's not, if they had a different name on their jerseys, different colored jerseys, I don't know what we would think of them. They're not. They're just another team right now.
Yep, that is true. Other than that, let's see. Iowa State, they ended up winning, didn't they?
Yes, they won late, 38-35.
Okay, so it's basically like what so did you actually DVR any of the games today before you left?
Well, fortunately, Michael, I've got YouTube TV and they're all recorded. I record every game.
Okay, so I guess I shouldn't tell you then about how the USC Maryland game. I'm sure
No. I don't try to hide the scores from, like, I don't have enough time to go back and watch every game, and because of what we do here, I got to be able to talk to all of you. So no,
I guess it was
I know what the scores are. I just haven't watched all the games.
Yeah, because I guess Maryland scored with like a minute to go or something.
Yeah, that's I got to say, a couple callers ago informed me of that one. I had yet to look up the Maryland USC game, and I'm rather surprised by that one.
Yep. Not bad. Good win for Florida tonight over Kentucky.
Yeah.
Which I'm surprised.
Let's give Billy Napier a little bit of credit here. That guy's been made fun of more than anybody in college football practically. And they beat UCF by 3 scores the last time out. They got a win against Mississippi State, who's getting better and better, and we're very competitive against Texas A&M tonight. Yep. And now they got a win against Kentucky. He's salvaging a season to a certain extent. Now, whether that's going to save his job, probably not.
Mm-hmm. But I got to ask you, who did UCF play today? Was that SMU?
UCF played Iowa State.
Okay, because when they because I guess they had it to where they had a pick six, but I guess the guy that was returning the interception dropped the ball. Would that make a difference, or was that a 2-score game with Iowa State and UCF?
Iowa State won 38-35.
Oh wow! So if he wouldn't have dropped the ball, you there? Hello. Great. Oh, I
Apologies, my bad. Keep going.
no.
So you want clarification on UCF and Iowa State?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 38-35. I don't know what happened. I know that Iowa State scored late to win the game.
Because I guess they threw an interception. The guy was running it back, and instead of waiting to cross the goal line before he dropped the ball to 1 yard line.
Oh, one of those deals, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my. So we're talking about a UCF player.
Yeah. I believe so. I think that's the game it was in. Convincing win for Colorado today. And they still got a shot. And they still got a shot to win the Big 12? Or do they need a lot of help?
I got to tell you, I don't know what happened with Colorado. Who they beat today? I didn't see that score.
I can't remember. Hang on.
Colorado was playing Texas Tech? No. Baylor played Texas Tech.
They played Arizona. It was 34-7 Colorado, Arizona.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a close game. I thought Colorado would win. I did not pick the game, I don't believe. If I did, I would have picked Colorado. But I thought it was going to be a really good game, close game. So that's a significant win for Colorado. What I cannot explain Arizona's offensive performance, scoring one touchdown against Colorado's defense.
Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. But no, do they still got it, or do they need a lot of help to win the Big 12 still?
Why do they need help?
Well, because K-State got
game, right?
Well, they lost. Well, the conference, but that was the Kansas State, right?
One game in the conference. So if they win the rest of their games, they're going to go play in the conference championship game.
Well, yeah, but they still got. Did they play BYU?
Yeah, you're asking if they need help. They don't need help. They need to win games themselves.
Okay.
They don't need any help.
I was thinking they, for some reason, they didn't have the conference championship, but I digress anyway. No, but no, Iowa laid a complete egg tonight against Michigan State out here, 32-20, after putting 40 up last week.
Yeah. Now, I did say this in Michigan State's defense because we had a conversation with our buddy Corey Brada, and he was ripping on Michigan State and how bad they are. And I'm not saying that he was wrong, but I was being a little bit kinder to Michigan State because, granted, they did play the two best teams in the conference the last 2 weekends. And before that, they beat Maryland. So that's not bad. They beat Maryland and Iowa.
Yep. Which is not surprising against like that, but no. I was going to say, we'll see what happens with that coming up in a couple weeks with both Purdue and IU. I think they're back-to-back, but we'll see what happens. All right. Sure you got other callers coming up and stuff. Thanks for taking my call.
Before you leave here, Michael. So Hamasira says they, meaning Colorado, do need help. They don't play Iowa State and don't have the tiebreaker against Kansas State. Of course, they lost that game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, meaning that if Iowa State wins the rest of their games and Kansas State wins the rest of their games,
that's your big good.
And that doesn't even take into account BYU. So since Colorado has lost a game, they technically need help. But I would expect that they're going to get it. I would be awfully surprised if the Big 12 championship participants are 0 and 1 loss teams. They might be 1 loss teams, but all right, Michael.
All right. Thanks.
Appreciate you being here.
Yep. I'll see you in about 10 hours, sure.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Speaking of which, Michael just referenced our Sunday show. which we put together every week at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So we're out of our element. We're off our schedule this week. If you haven't noticed here at the Voice of College Football, so we had no Thursday show, Friday show. We do thank John Diadamo for putting together a Friday show for us. And here we are after I watched very little college football, basically nothing today, not to my standard. I watched like an hour of Miami and Louisville and Nebraska and Indiana at the same time, but it's helping my son get ready for a wedding. So did I really, did it really register what I was watching? No, it didn't. And here we are 12 hours later and longer than that. Boy, it's 1:22 a.m. But, and we're running through the day in college football. So I am basically learning from all of you what happened today and what was important. And I look forward to trying to backtrack and catch some of the important moments around the weekend. But we typically go live on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I don't know when that show is going to be because, again, we're spending time with family this weekend. We're on the road and spending time with family. So I don't know when we're going to be live, if at all, on Sunday. But I believe we will be live at some point. All right. Michigan man's checking in.
What's good, Mark? How's your day been so far, man?
I'm good. What's going on?
Before I get to the train wreck that is Michigan football, did you see? I thought that the weirdest call I've seen all year was in that Georgia-Texas game. The PI call. Did you see that?
I did not.
Okay, so it was Carson Beck throws a pick. Then they call PI. It wasn't PI, but they called it. And then fans started throwing beer bottles all over the field. So it delayed the game. And then the refs during this delay got together and decided, you know what? Never mind. That wasn't. We're taking that. We're taking that call back. I don't think I've ever seen that.
That's pathetic.
Have you ever seen that?
Well, first of all, I don't even know if they can do that by rule. I don't even know if that's a legitimate reversal of a call to review a PI call.
You can't review. You can't review that call.
Exactly.
And mind you, if that delay doesn't happen, they don't even huddle up to talk.
Yeah, that's pathetic. Those officials should be fined and suspended. Unless we're missing. If we're missing something, I apologize. There's something.
No, we're not. I watched it.
Right or whatever. But based on your depiction of it and DeReal's and the way it sounds, they should be fined and they should be suspended.
It literally sounds like they caved to peer pressure.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Because do you set a precedent when you do that? If anything, I think there should be some. I know they're fans, so I don't even know if you could do this. But if anything, it should be like an extra flag for throwing beer cans onto the into the end zone, causing a delay, kind of like a sideline warning or something.
Yeah. Their next announcement should not have been we're retracting this pass interference call. It should have been we're tacking on another 15 yards based on unsportsmanlike conduct.
Because what's to stop other fan bases from doing that now?
You have a great point. You never win by giving in to mobs. You have to stand up to them. You have to do what's right and not be cowards. And
so are fans going to start throwing beer bottles on the on the field now because they watch this game? It's crazy. It's a crazy precedent to set. But man, what a year though, Mark. I mean, how many undefeated teams we got now? Just one in the top 10? Is it just Miami?
Miami in the top 10. We still have BYU and Pitt.
I can't remember a year like that.
No.
We're still in October.
Well, we've got Oregon.
Oh, we do got Oregon. That's right. So it's Oregon. Okay. But still, I don't remember a year where there was this few teams that, were undefeated.
Yeah, out of the power conferences, we lost Texas this week, and we still have Oregon, Miami, BYU, Pitt. How about that for 4 undefeated teams?
Yeah, no, that's you have two arguments for that. You can say it's parity, which I think there's a good argument for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Or you could say it's just one of those off down years in college football where there's not a lot of elite quarterbacks. There's a lot of coach changes with elite coaching. You could say that too, or maybe it's a combination of both. Could be a combination of both too. So, but I like it though.
I like it too. I think it's fun. And so what's crazy is, people were writing off Georgia. Like that's ridiculous. Writing off Georgia and talking about Texas like they're just the undisputed number one. They are the best team in the country. It's not even debatable. And then here we are 3 hours later, and we're questioning. People are now going to question Texas and write them off. No, this is going to continue to be a roller coaster. Now, I do think that the 5 to 7 teams that can win the national championship really hasn't changed, other than maybe Alabama's not in that group.
Yeah, that's true. And I actually think there's more teams that can win a championship this year than most years. Just because it seems more, you know what I'm saying? It seems more even.
I agree with you, but I don't think it's many. I think it's more interesting of how many teams can make the playoffs, like very odd teams. Right now,
yeah, that's true.
BYU is a very real chance of making the playoffs, and Pitt has a real chance of making it, and Navy and Army have chances to make the playoffs that are very legit.
Indiana, I think, is going to make the playoffs.
In the past, we were talking about 7 or 8 teams making the 14 playoff. Now we're talking about those 7 or 8 teams that have a chance to win the national championship. Now, none of the teams that you mentioned, do you really think can win a national championship?
No, I don't think, some of those outskirt teams. But I think when I think about it, there's not a team that I go, yeah, they're winning it. I feel like I don't know. I literally don't know who's going to win the national championship. I'm not confident in picking any team to win the national championship this year. I think maybe Georgia might be my most confident. And Georgia kind of reminds me of those Alabama teams that would lose to Ole Miss early in the season, and then they would start to pick it up as the season went along. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That was a very impressive performance.
Wet Blanket here is saying Iowa State has a real shot. I don't know what he
At
means.
what?
I don't know if he's talking about the playoff. If he's talking about the playoff, absolutely they do. If he's talking about the national championship, I don't buy that whatsoever. No.
All right, now let's get to this train wreck, man. They need to fire every single coach on this staff. Every single coach on this staff. Sharon need to go. Everybody need to go, man. This should be treated like 2011 Ohio State with Luke Fickell. That's what this should be treated like. All of them. There's no excuse, man. You have NFL talent on this team, and you. I've watched a lot of football. You watch a lot of football. They look poorly coached. That's what they look like. They look very poorly coached. Fundamentally, not knowing what they're doing situationally. It just looks like a poorly coached team.
Well, the head coach has botched the quarterback situation since the offseason. And to your point, the defense should be so much. Now, I didn't see today's game, so I got to catch up on today's game, but I've seen all the other games, and the defense should still be a near elite defense, and they're not.
What if I told you this? Tuttle is the worst of the 3 quarterbacks based on today's performance.
Oh, well, then you're telling us a lot.
What is that? That sounds pretty bad, right?
They all suck.
They all do suck, and I think he's the worst one. He's had 5 turnovers since he came in the game last week. He's had 5. For as bad as Orgy is for barely even able to complete a pass, Tuttle has the worst accuracy out of actually all of them. He's throwing behind. He's throwing way ahead. He's throwing at the ground. He's dirting balls. It's tough to wait. It's worse than Iowa. It's worse than Iowa last year.
Yeah, that's rough. Well, he only threw 1 pick today.
You have to watch. This is one of those situations where you got to watch the tape.
Okay.
I'm telling you, if you go back and watch that tape, you'll see how inaccurate he was. And a lot of those pass yards are from a line of scrimmage passes, some of the same stuff we've been doing with all three quarterbacks. He had, I think, one or two longer passes, but for the most part, to me, he was the worst quarterback of the bunch. And that's not saying much. They're all bad. You know what I'm saying? But the most egregious thing. Go ahead.
They played a defense today that gave up almost 600 yards of total offense to a true freshman quarterback, backup quarterback at Purdue last week.
Yeah, I'm with you. And not only that, I didn't really believe in karma too much, Mark. But after today, I believe in the football gods. I believe in karma, and here's why. In the USC game, they kept trying to force Edwards. What happened? He fumbled the ball. Today, they start Edwards. They're playing Edwards. It's not working. He ends up fumbling the ball. I truly believe the football gods are coming down saying, hey, you keep playing this guy. He's not earning his carries. We're going to make him fumble the ball. I don't know how to. This is coaching malpractice at this point, what they're doing. I don't understand it. I don't even think he's going to get drafted, Mark. I don't even think the kid's going to get drafted. I really believe that.
Yeah, unless an NFL team really thinks that they can do something with him as a specialty player. But he's not going to get drafted high, that's for sure. He's going to be at the bottom of the draft, 6th, 7th round.
Yeah, so you see there, he had 7 carries for 38 yards. That 19-yard long was the play he fumbled the ball on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand it. Does he got blackmail on the coach? Did he blackmail the coach? I don't understand. Does he got like a secret envelope with like pictures or something? I don't get it, man. It feels like they went into the bye week. They sat down Edwards and they sat down Mullings. They told, hey, you guys are doing, hey, Mullings, you're doing fantastic. Edwards, you're not doing so good, but you know what? We're still going to give you the carries during practice. We're still going to make you the guy. If I'm Mullings, I don't know what I'm thinking, man. I'd be so mad right now. I'd be so mad.
And this is a program, Michigan, that you know better than I do under Harbaugh. For being a blue blood, was always really good about the best man plays. The best man starts. We don't care if you were a 5-star, what you were. We got a ton of 3 stars that turned out to be players that we developed, and they'll play. We don't care what your recruiting ranking was. That got you here, but that's it. And we play the best guy.
Yeah, by the way, Jack Tuttle also fumbled the ball. It wasn't just a pick. So he had a pick, he had a fumble, and he actually had another pick, but they called holding. And it was a terrible decision. So he really had 3. And so it's a train wreck, man. And look, I want them to go after the Indiana coach. Either the Indiana coach, I think they should give him a call. His buyout's only $5 million. For Michigan, $5 million buyout really ain't that big of a deal, man.
Million. Yes, that's nothing.
So
that's nothing.
when did you buy him out with the product he put on the field this year?
Oh, hell yeah, I'd buy him out.
And I like Indiana's coach, man. I would give him a call.
Oh, I think there's no doubt that he can coach, that he can just flat out coach. When a guy shows what he did at James Madison, then he comes to the big time, steps into the Big Ten where this team is dead, and he's whipping the likes. And we're not going to sell Nebraska as some great team. They're not. But still,
but 56-7 ain't no joke.
Touchdowns, and they're beating everybody. UCLA is playing decent games against the likes of Rutgers and Minnesota, and Indiana stomps them by 4 touchdowns. Yes,
they haven't trailed all year. Did you know that?
I did hear that, and to watch them play, oh man, their offense. And I just got to see a little bit today, but they were talking quite a bit about their defensive coordinator and what a job he's done. And this guy, the only thing he's going to have to live down if he makes that move is that he said Michigan sucks at the beginning of the season. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, yeah, but we know how coaching goes, man. These guys will leave programs like that for the Blue Bloods every time. I have a hard time believing that they got on the phone like, hey, we'll pay you $10 million to come coach in Michigan. I doubt he would turn that down. And the other, at this point, I don't call everybody, okay? Call Nick Saban, call Urban Meyer. I don't care who they got to call, man. Call someone with a track record. Because if we stick with what we got, we're looking at Rich Rod Brady Hoke all over again. I'm letting you know right now. It's going to be Rich Rod Brady Hoke all over again. 100%.
Well, I believe
This is the worst football team I've seen since Rich Rod.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
So that's where I'm at, Mark.
And I think we had the conversation, Michigan man, about a month ago. And when you asked me, should they fire Sharon Moore or what is it going to have to take? And I told you I wouldn't be as patient with him. It seems counterintuitive that I would be less patient with a new coach than I would be if they hired PJ Fleck or Matt Campbell or somebody that I know can run a program. That if they were on their way to 6-6, 7-5, I would say, you know what, this guy, I know he can coach. I know he can run a program. I know he knows what he's doing. They just need to transition through this. But no, Sharon Moore has no track record. So they can't afford to see if he's going to grow and develop into a coach. 9 times out of 10, these guys will show you right out of the gate whether they can truly coach.
Oh, yeah. A perfect example is what Ohio State did in 2011. They gave Luke Fickell a season, and then they're like, nah, this ain't it. And then they hired Urban Meyer right away. That's how they need to handle this. They need to start. They need to start looking now. And honestly, this is how bad it is for Michigan fans. We always wanted to beat Ohio State, but I think Sharon Moore is so bad that if he somehow pulled off a miracle, it's a lose-lose. He could beat Ohio State, but that means he's probably staying.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lose-lose, man. So I'd rather then this Michigan fans are gonna hate this. But I'm thinking long term. I hope we lose the rest of our games, man. I hope we lose the rest of our games so that they're motivated to fire him. Because I know Ward is he's reactionary. He doesn't take action. He needs like extreme things to happen for him to make any moves. So if that means we gotta lose the rest of our games, so be it. As long as we can go out there and get a winning football coach, I think it's worth it. So anyways, man, let me get out of here, man. Great football season so far.
Appreciate you being here. Well, we got our Michigan man. He shows up, win or lose. It's good to hear from him. Good takes on Michigan. Yeah, Kurt Signetti. What a job this guy's done. Crazy good. Before we get to the next call, do want to point out that we've got our guy Andrew checking in. Mark, what do you think Dace is going to say about Michigan? I don't know if I'm going to be on the Michigan show this week or not. What is he going to say about Michigan? Well, he doesn't have to back off of too much because once he saw them play the likes of Arkansas State and Davis Warren throw it away 3 times to Arkansas State, he was geared up for a bad season, geared up for what we're seeing here, that they botched the quarterback situation, that they should have gone to get a transfer, that they should have been able to either, again, I go back to something that I just kind of put together in my mind that made sense to me at some point in the offseason, that suddenly with the transfer portal, we just have these head coaches and the quarterback position and how much more important it is to get it right, because you do have these opportunities to fix wrongs. You have the opportunity to take a bad situation in your quarterback room where before you would have to just struggle through and piece something together and try to develop somebody and try to change your offense to supplement or hide a bad quarterback situation. Now you just erase it all by going to get somebody. But that amplifies the ones that don't make that correct call because their competitors are doing that. Their competitors are going out and getting Will Howard or Cam Ward or whomever, fill in the blank. Dylan Gabriel. All right. We got our buddy Porter stopping by. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Porter?
Hey, good morning.
Hey. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
How you think I'm doing, man? Go Dogs. We just
Yeah, big
we
night
just
for you.
knocked off the #1 team in the nation. What do you think? I appreciate the Michigan man, bringing up something that absolutely put me into a fit, which was, we had a interference call where they just kind of overturned it based on the way that the crowd in Austin, the way they reacted to it, and they just pretty much reversed the call. The thing gets me, Mark. Again, I'm happy my Dogs won. We won by 2 touchdowns and got good Dogs and everything. But I guess the thing that gets me, man, is we're a charter member of the SEC, and we have SEC refs reversing calls for teams that are have their first year in our conference, and we're falling all over ourselves to reverse these calls, to make these schedules the way they are, to where we have to go to Austin to play this game. We are a charter member of the SEC, and yet we got to go to Austin to play Texas. I know you as a Ohio State fan, the fact that you had to go to Oregon to play your game against Oregon. Ohio State is a charter member of the Big Ten. I guess the thing gets me, man, is just I'm sick and tired of these commissioners falling all over themselves to accommodate these new programs. Meanwhile, all of us that have been a member of our conference for the Big Ten, the SEC, meanwhile, we have to absolutely adhere to what these idiot commissioners are doing to accommodate these programs and just sit through and just take it from these absolute idiot officials and these idiot commissioners by going away to these conferences. And I don't know, man. It just makes me mad. I shouldn't be mad because we just won tonight. But the thing gets me is we should not have to go to Austin. And you as an Ohio State guy, you should not have to go to Oregon to play your game against Oregon. I guess I'm just frustrated, man. What's your take on that?
Okay, so I get your take, and I think a lot of people would join your thought, people that think on that level of what is right, what is forcing or putting new entries into the league in a position in which they have to earn their position in the pecking order and all that. I don't necessarily buy into that when it comes to scheduling. Now, I don't think that they should be screwing their best products. I don't think that they should be having them play Friday night games on the road after they just played a Saturday night game or anything like that, like USC had done to them a few times in the Pac-12. But first of all, somebody, I don't, as best I know, who are charter members in the SEC, it's pretty much the 10 members, original members are almost all pretty much even in regards to their longevity in the conference, correct?
Well, I mean,
the 10 prior to Arkansas and South Carolina joining.
But yeah, what do you mean in terms of like having to go to?
In terms of their longevity in the conference of being charter members or close to it.
Yeah, I mean the conference was formed in the 1930s.
Yeah,
but yet somehow
somebody's got to go to Texas.
But why would we, as a a premier brand in the SEC, why should we have to go to Austin to play that game? I guess that's what gets me. And why should you, as an Ohio State fan, why should you have to go to Oregon? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't see it that way.
Well, I do. And the way I've never seen, I've been watching college football since the 1970s, and I've never seen a pass interference call absolutely
Oh, yeah,
reversed
that's
reversed
beyond
based on the
insanity.
way that based on the way a crowd
Yes,
reacts to
that's
the.
absurd.
And I'm not saying the call was a good call, but my point is, how the hell do you as a charter member of the SEC get treated that way?
Again, I don't care who's a charter member or who's not. It has more for me to do with following protocol and procedure, and that you cannot reverse a pass interference call in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, man. Anyway, it was. I'm glad we won. I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I was very proud of Kirby and the defensive game plan that he brought to Austin. I thought it was absolutely tremendous. I love the corner blitz, the way Jalen Walker played by rushing the quarterback, but it just anyway, it was closer than it should have been, and anyway, I'm glad it's behind us. I'm glad we got the W. We got a week to prepare. We're off until the Florida game in Jacksonville, but I don't know. It's just frustrating. And maybe I shouldn't be so fixated on that and some other issues with targeting and some other ridiculous calls that the officials made.
So the comment made here, Porter, if you can see it on the screen, is to you and to I from Michael. The crew can talk about the penalty and then waive the penalty off. Well, I didn't see it, but it was my understanding that wasn't the case. It wasn't like they convened and because that happens all the time. They pick up the flag and say, this flag is not for, there was no holding on the play. They actually tell you what they were considering and they pick up the flag. This, if I hear this correctly, there was delay of game because of the raucous behavior of the crowd throwing crap on the field and all of that. And so there's a delay, which gave them time to apparently either look at the PI, which they shouldn't be doing that. It's not a reversible play, or they,
it's
changed their minds. And so it's not like they were conferencing after a call. It was that the action by the crowd caused a delay that gave them time to rethink their decision for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me that's absolutely ridiculous that
it is
that an official. I'll say this. Let me attack it from a macro standpoint rather than a micro standpoint. Right, not just this one call. The SEC. I'm a graduate of the University of Georgia. I'm a SEC guy, but the SEC is first rate in everything we do. Our SEC network is tremendous. Our our media days in the fall, early fall in the summertime is tremendous. We do everything first class in the SEC except for our officiating. Our officiating is absolutely dog crap. And I don't understand how a conference can be the first in everything, but yet our officials are absolutely incompetent.
Do we think that these officials need to be full-time?
I mean, how do you do that? I mean, football is not a full-time sport. So how do you do that?
Well, the only reason I say that is I'm grasping at something because you say that the SEC officials suck. The Pac-12 always says that theirs suck. You grab almost any reasonable fan, and I'm not talking about crazy delusional fans. I'm talking about people that, like yourself, that are knowledgeable. And I guarantee even the Pac-12 people coming into the Big Ten were like, we thought the officiating would be better. And there have been all sorts of gaffes in the Big Ten this year. So my thought is, what is the difference between what goes on in the NFL and in college football, other than they're going to be willing to pay more money on the NFL level because they have less games to pay, for one thing, and have more money on the line. And you would just think that officials, many would want to go officiate at the highest level. But besides that, the big difference is that I believe, I might be wrong, somebody call me out on this, that officials used to be part-time in the NFL and were for years and years and decades, they were accountants and plumbers and who knows what. And then they would, pack up their bags on a Thursday and fly to a game site or Friday, and they would, study up throughout the week, and they'd be ready to go on Sunday. And the NFL put its foot down and they raised their pay and they made them full-time officials, meaning that's their job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to answer it. Just be better. I mean, we had two guys kicked
Yeah, but
out.
it's their second job, is what I'm saying.
I understand that, but we had two guys kicked out for targeting, where the way they lowered their head and hit both players below their head, and were kicked out. Which means we're going to lose both of our starting safeties for the Florida game in 2 weeks because of these idiots. I mean, I don't know if it's the officials. I don't know if it's the whole targeting, ridiculous way that we do targeting. But these kids, I mean, if you can watch both, you can watch both replays. The kids lowered their head and hit them in the shoulder and hit them in the lower torso, but yet they were kicked out of the game. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say, Mark. These guys are absolute imbeciles.
Well, the one thing that was stated during those two reviews, and I think they were both late in the game because I did believe I saw both of those, is that I always thought that it was the crown of the helmet into the neck or head area of the opposing player, but they were saying that it's anywhere on the opposing player.
Exactly. I mean, it's I don't know. It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't want to get too fixated on this. I mean, I'm glad we won. I hope it doesn't hurt us in Jacksonville in a few weeks against Florida. It looks like Florida's getting better. But we're down to our third safety because of these idiots and their ridiculous targeting penalties. So, I do want. Okay, let's talk about college football as a whole. Congrats to IU. Obviously, I think you and I have talked. I mean, my mom went to Indiana. It's great. It's great what's going on in Indiana. The fact are they 7-0 or 6-0? I can't remember.
They are now 7-0.
7-0.
Yes.
So congrats to those guys. Great win for Notre Dame too here in Atlanta. What do you think about Notre Dame? Do you think the stench of the Northern Illinois loss has worn off of Notre Dame, or do you think Notre Dame, or do you think that stench is gonna? I mean, I don't see a lot of good wins on Notre Dame's schedule right now, especially with the way Southern Cal's playing. Do you see them getting in the playoff?
Well, so when you say the stench, I think the stench stays off if they run the table, and that's their lone loss. They'll be in the playoff at 11-1. But if they're 10-2 and have to be stacked up against other 10-2 teams, that Northern Illinois game will absolutely be on their record, especially considering, to your point, if they lose another game, who in the world are they going to lose to? Florida State's horrible. USC's marginal. And Army, Navy. What is Notre Dame? Notre Dame's got to be 6-1 right now. I think they played 7 games, so they've got 5 left. USC, Florida State, Army, Navy. Don't know who the other game is off the top of my head. It's probably another ACC.
Purdue or somebody.
It's no good. No, they steamrolled Purdue already. So we'll look up their schedule here real quick.
So do you see, if Notre Dame runs the table at 11-1 with that schedule, do you see Notre Dame getting in the playoff and taking a space from a team from the an at-large team from either the Big Ten or the ACC?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How many?
Well, they got to win against Texas A&M. That's certainly looking better and better by the week.
That's true. Yeah, Texas A&M is playing good. I will give them credit for that. Virginia, Army, and Southern Cal. Yeah, I don't see many good wins for Notre Dame. But I will say this: they play good. They play good today here in Atlanta. They look good. Notre Dame's a good team. I will say this: I just hate that I hate for them that they allowed Northern Illinois to beat them. And I love Notre Dame. I mean, I love the brand of Notre Dame. I think whenever Notre Dame's good, it's good for college football. So don't think I'm anti Notre Dame. I just as an SEC guy, I just don't want it to take away from one of our teams getting in the at large. For the 12. So, do you still see the SEC getting 4 in?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too, especially with A&M playing as well as they are. Texas, LSU is playing good. Georgia, Alabama, I think, is kind of on the outside looking in right now, but they're a quality team. Obviously, they beat us, but it's going to be fun coming down the stretch. I really think that. Do you see a Big 12 or an ACC getting a second team in?
The Big 12, no, I don't see that. I just don't see it. I think there are going to be far more upsets. There's no separation. Well, little separation between the teams at the top and the middle versus Miami, Clemson are playing so much better than teams. Miami just played a team in Louisville that's, I think, generally a top 5 team in the conference, and they won the game. And so they've separated themselves and continued on this path of separating themselves, even though they've had some close calls. So I could see a team like Miami. This would be the ACC's best chance of getting a second team in. Miami goes undefeated. They lose the ACC championship game. So they get the ACC champion in, most likely Clemson, and they get Miami in at 12-1.
But if you have Georgia, which is 10, let's just say we're 10-2 as at large, and the fact that we beat Clemson, do you see Georgia getting in above? Let's just say Clemson loses that ACC championship game.
Yeah.
Do you see Clemson getting in over Georgia, being that Georgia beat them?
I sure hope not.
Okay.
Georgia should go 10-2 versus 11-2. Big deal. It's the same record.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Well,
especially since Georgia's schedule, other than the Clemson game, even just the merit of them, just let's say they didn't even play, and Georgia was a 10-2 team with an SEC schedule. Texas, Ole Miss, Florida, on and on, Tennessee, Alabama, and Clemson was 11-2 and played Miami and like they've played no one. Their schedule is horrible. Clemson's beaten Stanford, Virginia, App State, NC State's terrible this year. They have yet to beat a team that's going to finish over 500 yet.
Yeah. Well, South Carolina's not a bad team. They put
yeah, they'll have to play South Carolina at the end. Yeah, they're not a bad team. No.
I don't know. I guess my biggest worry as a SEC guy is that we have we go 9-3 or something like that. I mean, it's meanwhile we have a murderous schedule. So, but we have some good wins. So, I don't know. I just hope that the committee does take into account the good quality wins that we have, not just us, but other teams in the SEC like Texas A&M and others. Because I see Texas A&M beating Texas. I see Arkansas beating Texas. I see Texas going 9-3 the rest of the year. I don't see Texas. I think they're gonna. Yeah, those are the two games. I see Texas going 9-3. I see Bama going 9-3. Quite frankly, I see LSU going. I think that there may be a 9-3 SEC team that gets in.
Well,
Do you see that happening?
Let me lay this out for you. During the 10 years of the 14 playoff, which obviously we've got the same exact process in place. We're just selecting more teams. We're just having more teams go into the playoff, but it's still the same committee making the selections. I think you've probably heard me say this. We've run all 10 years through the rankings and produced these videos to show every 10-2 team in major college football would have made the playoffs. Every 9-3 team, it's strange that it's this cut and dry. Every 9-3 team would have missed the playoff except for one. Penn State team was number 11 at 9-3. But I even bucked the odds of a 10-year trend, and my predictions at the beginning of the year had two 9-3 SEC teams making the playoffs: LSU and Tennessee.
What year was that?
What year was what?
A previous year, or are you talking about this year?
I predicted Tennessee and LSU to make the playoffs this year.
Oh, okay, I got you. 9-3 this year.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Huh. Well, I mean, to me that is justified, based on how hard the schedules are. So, anything else that kind of stands out for you? It sounds like you were at a family gathering today.
Yes, I was at my son's wedding all day. So,
anything else that stands
very
out?
little college football.
What about Friday? I'll be honest with you. As crazy as this sounds, I was very impressed with Duke on Friday night. Did you watch that game?
No. Again, I was doing family stuff all Friday, so I didn't see anything except come home very late at night and saw the replay, tried to catch the very end of the BYU Oklahoma State game. That was quite entertaining, just the very end, but I was so tired I didn't even really, none of it registered.
Yeah.
But I saw the Duke beat Florida State for the first time ever. They are the last team that has a significant amount of games played. I don't know what the minimum is, that had a winless all-time series against another Power 5 team.
Yeah, I had no idea. I'll be honest with you. I was just sitting on my couch with my wife, after work, and just sitting. I didn't realize there were that many good teams playing on Friday night, like BYU and Okie State and some others. So anyway, it was pretty good action on Friday. So anyway, well, hey man, enjoyed it. Good day of college football. And I'll let you get to the next caller, but appreciate you having me on.
Congrats, Porter, on the big win, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Go Dogs. Thank you.
All right. Before we get to this next call, we got our buddy Matthew stopping by. And, of course, Matthew hosts the Texas show. That's on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern time. He hosts the SEC show. So it's Texas Live Monday at 7 Eastern. It's the SEC Live show Tuesday at 8 Eastern. Please run to those channels and check them out. The Texas channel with Matthew on Mondays and the SEC channel with Matthew on Tuesdays. Matthew says, if you would have told most what side of the ball struggled for Texas before the game, most would have said defense. Defense deserved better tonight, held back Carson Beck to 4.1 yards average and 3 picks. For sure. And speaking of which, we got Drew Longhorn fan in. Drew, what's going on tonight?
Well, yeah, but we didn't do anything with those picks, and we coughed up the ball right back to them. So, I think the turnovers were 4, Texas 3, Georgia. So I don't really think either team played that well tonight. And congratulations to the Bulldogs. I'll take my L. I do want to address a couple things. and we'll go firstly on the quote unquote reversing of the call. It
Yeah.
wasn't technically a reversing of the call. It wasn't like they went over to New York and relooked at it and reversed the call. The referees on the field got together and picked up the flag, as they do on many plays, because it was a bullshit play or a bullshit call. And even this last guy acknowledged that. So I think there's a part of me that's like, when I hear a Bulldog fan go, you know what, we're a charter school. We've been around. We should get the benefit of the doubt on that. And yeah, sure, it was a bad call, but so? And I don't know where you come from, but I'm the type of person, even when I watch the game and I see a bad call in my favor, I'm like, man, I hope they don't do that. I hope they reverse that.
Sure.
And
Well,
so it's just, go ahead.
As you probably heard, sorry to interrupt, as you probably heard, I don't buy into the whole that anyone should be given preference over anyone else in regards to a school being established or a blue blood or a charter member. I don't care. I want the game to be officiated correctly. It's like, I don't think a basketball player should be given preference on a foul call because he's a superstar, or a baseball hitter at the plate because he's got a reputation that he should be given a call on a pitch. I just think all that stuff is ridiculous. It should be the ref should be completely blind to colors of jerseys and brands and team names. They should be nothing. It should be nothing but a generic football game to them.
100%. And can we agree that in a best perfect world scenario, we would reverse bad calls? We would. I know rules are rules and we don't reverse PI calls, but in a perfect world, we would reverse those calls. I'm talking egregious, absolute 100%, guilty is guilty. We would reverse those calls, you and I, if we could.
Well, yeah, we want the right call to be made.
And so let me throw some context on that call. So right before that, there was a run back from Texas from Golden that was taken back on what I think is also a BS call, which was a holding call. And they literally, even now, they think that the flag came out of the crowd. Now, I don't know if they've confirmed that, but that's what the announcers were saying. So we come right after that, this momentum shifter it takes us all the way back. We're finally getting some momentum, and finally getting some momentum, and then this happens. And so when we want to talk about setting precedents and stuff, like how many times has the UT fans thrown, their beers on the field? I don't know. I've been a UT fan forever, 30 years. I've never seen that. Maybe it's happened. So, I don't buy this precedent thing. I think this was like a heavyweight fight where UT on that single play was such a momentum shifter that I'm a very reasonable guy. I was even yelling at the TV. So I think anybody who actually watched the game and saw the quote reversal, that wasn't actually a reversal, it was a picking of the flag, and knows all the context that led up to that event, I don't think anybody's going to get any trouble, and they shouldn't.
Okay, so I did not see, this was not my normal weekend of college football viewing, watching just nonstop from noon to midnight. So again, I didn't see this. So I heard two different callers explain to me what happened. And this is you tell me if this is accurate. Okay. There's a pass interference call made. And after the call was made and announced to the crowd goes crazy. And there's crap thrown on the field and it causes a delay. I don't know if there's any announcement made to the stadium, like stop throwing bottles or whatever, but there's a delay in the action. And during that delay, the officials then determined that it should not have been pass interference. And they reversed the call and announced it to the crowd. Of course, they made the announcement. So it gave the impression that because the crowd went ballistic, that they intimidated the officials into reversing the call.
I'm a reasonable guy. I can 100% see that Not only did it look that way, but it did probably indeed play out that way. With that said, that's one of the worst, most egregious calls in all of college that I've ever seen in my life. That literally would have ended this game. And by the way, had they not reversed the call, quote unquote, reversed the call, this game would have an asterisk over it forever. So if I'm a Georgia fan and I'm up by the amount that I'm up, but I understand his butt was puckering at that moment because the momentum was shifting. And sure enough, when they did, quote unquote, reverse the call or pick up the flag, Texas went and threw it and got a touchdown pretty much immediately. So, I can get why a Georgia fan would be mad about that. And if I were on the other side, sure, I'd probably look at it that way. But like at the end of the day, we want the right calls on the field, especially because not only do they call it pass interference, they called a pass interference call that turned out to be a pick, not a pick six, but it was a huge play in the game. And so they did the right thing in the final analysis. And I get it. Like, I do get it. Like, people were throwing beer cans on the field, but like, I don't blame them. I wanted to throw a beer can on the field. It was that bad. So go watch it again in context, and you'll understand how it played out.
Well, nothing justifies throwing crap on the field.
I mean,
so every time there's a bad call, people should throw stuff on the field. Like we would have
I'll
crap
tell you,
thrown on the field at every college football game about 4 to 6 times per game.
Yeah, see, that's the difference between you and I. 99.9999% of the time, there is, in my opinion, no moral or ethical reason you should throw a beer can on the field. With that said, there are calls out there that, in my opinion, are so egregious, so outrageous. That's right. Well, we're all talking opinion. That's right. Well, that's me being honest.
Well, you're not.
So in your opinion,
the delineation between
neither are you.
And this is not justified.
Neither are you.
No, I'm not.
So you're saying there is no call.
No, there's no call that warrants people acting like morons. No, that does not exist.
Well, I don't know what team you're a fan of, but I would beg to differ if you were in this situation.
No.
But we'll never know. We'll never know.
I
mean, so yeah, I mean, that's easy for you to say. It's never happened to you.
On a football field that could. Okay, and then you're going to.
Okay, well, first of all, hold on. To be clear, we're talking about plastic cups from the student section. That's what we're talking about.
So it's not going to harm anyone.
Okay, so so let's make that clear. It was a statement. And a deserved statement, in my opinion.
It's a statement to say this call sucks, and you need to reverse this call, and we're going to make.
Well, nobody thought it would get reversed.
On you, and we're going to make a spectacle of you.
That's very clear. Very clear.
Otherwise, what's the result? So you're saying what you're saying. Let me clarify.
It was literally a protest. Yes.
What you're saying is that we are going to throw a tantrum to intimidate you into changing your mind to not do your job because of the right reasons to do your job, but out of intimidation, we're going to force you to change your minds.
This is very important. Whoa.
Happen in sport. We want the officials not to make a call based on their own conviction of the right call, but based on intimidation from the fans.
Okay, that is very incorrect. That is a very incorrect. I'm telling you, that is a very incorrect synopsis of what you think happened. When they threw those on the field, you're saying that. Hold on, you're saying they did it to intimidate. They didn't do it. Nobody thought that. No one ever thought that call was going to get reversed. Ever.
So then what does that?
It's like I say, it's a literal protest. It's not a. Hey, we're gonna do. Hey, look, if we all do this, maybe they'll change a PI call. Nobody ever thought it was going to get reversed.
People don't protest to change conditions.
In this case, on that PI call, it was a shock to anyone watching the game, and even that guy who just was talking would admit that. Nobody expected that to happen, including Texas fans.
You don't think, for example, a coach yells and screams and goes crazy over a call thinking this is going to plant in that official's mind that I'm going to get the next call?
Perhaps a coach in that situation, yes. In this situation, no. And anyone who watched the game knows that. This was a terrible call that literally changed the game, where I was bitching and moaning about talking shit on the internet, being like, asterisk.
Okay, first of all, Darren. First of all, Drew, I want to be very clear. You're talking to somebody who has thrown tantrums watching football games. So I'm not elevating myself above you or anybody else to say, oh, I'm too good for that, or I'm so rational and above that. I'm not doing that. Okay. I've thrown tantrums. I've thrown spoons at televisions. I've done all sorts of, I've punched lampshades.
Me too, man. Me too.
Absolutely.
I'm a Texas fan, dude. You have no idea how many times.
But the point I'm making is when you're when you're in the stands and there's what you consider a bad call to be made and you throw something out onto the field, basically there could be all sorts of reasons for that. But the basic one that I'm thinking of is you're mad, you're angry, and you want to show how angry and horrible this person is on the field that made this call, and you're just emotionally out of control, and so you got to do something.
Yes, that was the situation. I know you want me to say it's never okay to throw something on the field. I'll say that. I will say that to you right now if that makes you feel. It's never okay. It's always unacceptable to throw a beer bottle or a plastic beer cup on the field with no intention of thinking you're going to get the call reversed, by the way. I'll say that if that makes you feel better. But there is a 0.1% chance that I could be in the stands where a call is so bad and so egregious that, yeah, I could see myself throwing it in the student section. I could see it happening.
Well, I thank you.
And by the way, the way it went down, one guy did it. And then the dust kind of settled for a moment, and then another one comes. And then next thing, and then it all started coming. So it wasn't this like planned event. I just want to, anybody who hadn't watched it, watch how it really played out. And once again, I'll sit here and say nobody should ever throw anything on the field. Obviously. But it's conceivable that you would be in a situation that is so bad, so egregious that you would. And nobody got hurt. They picked up the cups. In fact, all those cheerleaders ran over there and picked up the cups. And it actually cleared out pretty good. And actually, the truth of the matter is, I think that helped Georgia more than anything. Had that flag never been thrown and the momentum just continued to be what it was, who knows, of course. But the fact that this whole event happened, yeah, sure, the call got quote-unquote reversed. But, it hurt Texas more than Georgia. I mean, unless it didn't get reversed, obviously.
But it did get.
Should I go to the targeting calls?
Pardon me?
Can we move to the targeting calls? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody who watched those two, the first one was absolutely the dude was headhunting and put our guy out. I don't remember if it was Wingo. I think it was Wingo.
Okay.
And that was straight helmet to helmet. That's undeniable. That's okay. And the fact, and of course I'm looking at this stuff online, so I'm watching dog fans being like, "This is real football." Pansies can't play football anymore. It's like, dude, that dude headhunted our guy and put him out.
Okay.
Okay. Second one.
Two issues I have with your statement. Now, whether the guy was knocked out of the game and whether Georgia fans say stupid things online have nothing to do with whether the call was correct. Neither one of those things.
I agree with that. But the call was correct.
Okay.
So, like, I mean, the announcer said, yeah, that's textbook targeting. That one's the crown of the helmet too, by the way. And by the way, watch it in real time. Like, anybody can go rewatch it. It's bad. I mean, nobody would want that done to their player. So then after that, 2 plays later, you have another kind of targeting, and I get it. Some are closer than others. That one was the worst, and that didn't get called because it was only 2 plays later. You've already got all this controversy. And then the very next play, you have the next targeting, the quote unquote targeting. That one, I will give them, that was like a face to face. Okay. I'm not sure I like that one being called. Fine. I'm okay either or, to be honest with you. Like I say, even if I'm on the other side of the fence, you can't be doing that stuff. But that first one was dirty. And anybody who's trying to defend that, come on, man. And so I just find it interesting. Like Kirby Smart apparently came out after the game and said the refs were trying to give it to. That is some BS, man. Like,
wait, let's make sure that your regurgitating Kirby Smart's comments are accurate. So you're saying that Kirby Smart came out after the game and said the officials were trying to give it to Texas?
I'm paraphrasing, but yes.
Then I'm sure that he's getting fined for that, for one thing. And somebody's backing you up in the chat saying that Kirby Smart did say that. So that's interesting. Okay, I'm just, and somebody else is. So apparently he did. I'm just saying that it's an automatic. It's supposed to be an automatic fine if there's any criticism of the officials during a news conference. Hello? I think we lost our guy. All right. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And again, we typically do a Sunday show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. But as I've explained a number of times during the show, it's a different weekend here for the Voice of College Football in regards to my own personal schedule. So I've got family plans on Sunday, but we'll probably get together at some point on Sunday, but I don't know exactly what that's going to be. So please like this video, please subscribe, and you turn on the notifications to know when we go live. See that fine looking book on the screen right there, Disputed National Champions. We will get you a link here soon because it's officially launched on October 29th. We will tell you more about our new book release authored by yours truly, Disputed National Champions, College Football's historical 1990s reset. If you love college football, love college football history, but this is not a history book. This is a history book where we throw it toward and project it toward the future. So very unique situation, very unique book that we believe we put together for all of your enjoyment. So appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, and we will see you sometime on Sunday. Dave, thank you so much for the congratulations. Thank you for that. Yes, my son is very happy, and his now wife. I can't believe I have a married son. Yes, I do. All right, folks, appreciate you being here. We'll see you on Sunday.